Sync. Hello. Welcome to another RC-505 tutorial. Today we're gonna talk about the most requested effect, the vocoder. In this video I'm gonna quickly explain what a vocoder actually is, a little bit of its history and how it was used in music, and then of course how to use it on your RC-505. Of course I'm gonna have timestamps down below that you can just watch the things that you're actually interested in, but again we're gonna just cover the basics. There's so much that you can do with this effect, just the basics, just to get you motivated to use the vocoder. But I'm gonna try and keep it concise and somewhat short, such that it's all interesting. Yeah. Okay, let's get started. Alright, so the vocoder, in very simple terms explained, stands for voice encoder. What does it actually stand for? Voice encoder. Yeah, I was right. Vocoder actually stands for voice encoder. And in very simple terms explained, it just takes your voice input from the microphone and then, does some magic to figure out the essence of your voice, more or less. And there you can go down rabbit holes researching the harmonics and implosives and all sorts of stuff that might be too much for this video. So just let's just call it magic. And and then from your voice you have like a control set. So basically from the voice a control is generated. With this control you can then modulate another signal. So there will be another signal coming into the vocoder, for instance a simple tone, and then with the control that you derived from the voice you can modulate it and then you get the resulting vocoder sound. So super simple. You need voice, you need an input signal, and then with the voice you get control and then you modulate it, and what comes out is the typical vocoder sound. Wow, what a great explanation. Ha! You can just Google it if you're really interested what a vocoder actually does. I mean, again, you can go deep there, but I don't want to. Okay. We are all here to make music, not to learn music theory or like electronic theory. History-wise, the vocoder was initially developed at Bell Labs to synthesize voice. So basically they wanted to artificially create the sound of voice. So they wanted to sound human. And now we use it the other way around. Since it sounds so artificial, we use it to make the human sound more like a robot. And another idea was, because you have those control signals, you can then send them over the overseas cable, so you can compress them better than actual speech. And then, as with many things, it was, further developed by the military for encrypting speech. So during World War II, the vocoder was actually used to just transmit the control signals, and in a way they are encrypted. Only if you know the exact filter parameters from the encoding, you can decode it again and synthesize the speech. But back then a vocoder was, filling a room. That's how much computing power it needed. And I found that quite interesting, so I wanted to also put that in this video. Of course, there's a lot more history to the vocoder. But again, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, feel free. But then the vocoder concept was popularized in the arts, in music, by bands like Kraftwerk. Just listen to their song Robots. And if you want a more recent example, you can listen to Daft Punk, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Now, let's get to the interesting part. How do we actually use the vocoder on the RC-505? If you're using multiple effects, you can only find it on the A. There are only 4 settings that you can change, so let's get through them real quick. First setting is the carrier. This is the second signal that I was talking about before, because the first input that it takes is the line in. So whatever comes from your microphone or from your instruments. That will be used to create those control signals to do the modulation. But then it still needs the carrier on which the modulation is done on. So it needs a carrier signal that is then modulated, right? And the way it is implemented in the RC-505 is that you select one of the tracks to be your carrier signal. And that's what you do with the carrier here. You can select track 1 to track 5, any of the tracks. So if you want a quick example, the easiest carrier signal is just one tone, like do. I mean, technically not one tone because I was freaking blowing into the mic. Anyhow, if we want to use that as our carrier, then we select track 1, and if we then start the vocoder, then it will sound something like this. Without the carrier signal, it will sound something like this. Now, the way most people usually use the vocoder is by muting the actual carrier, because otherwise you have the original signal and the modulated signal, which doesn't really make much sense. So you want to put your fader down from the carrier signal such that you then only have the modulated signal. A little bit more detail here maybe. You can have the vocoder effect activated. It will only take the carrier signal if it's actually playing. All right? Otherwise, you will have silence as your carrier, and then the vocoder effect will just mute you. The reason why you hear me now is because I'm still using the direct signal, not the effect signal, because I put the balance down. So if your track is not playing, you don't have the carrier signal. It needs to be playing, even though you don't hear it because you muted it with a fader, but it needs to be playing for it to work, okay? Otherwise, the vocoder might just mute you if you have the balance to 0, 100. Speaking of balance, let's already talk about the balance because we encountered that before in our previous effect tutorials. What the balance is should be fairly clear. It's the direct signal to the effect signal. So if I put it all the way to 100, 0, then my vocoder effect will do literally nothing. And if I put it all the way to 0, 1. I hope that was understandable. Then you have just the vocoder effect. Simple. Very simple. Now there are only 2 more things that we need to talk about. And at first I want to talk about the attack. Since you have those control signals, you can use them in different ways to modulate. You can decide how quickly you want to modulate the signal, right? And the higher the attack, the quicker you want it to be modulated. To demonstrate, I'm actually gonna use the vocoder as a track effect. I'm just gonna slice the sound like Alright, so I have a sliced sound now with a on-off, and now I want to modulate it using the vocoders. I'm gonna select the vocoder here on my track effects because yes, the vocoder is also available as a track effect. I'm gonna select the carrier 1 again. We're gonna set it to full on effect. And now if I use the vocoder as a track effect, then all the input that it takes from the tracks will be put as input for the vocoder. And the output of the vocoder, the modulated signal, will then go to the out of the loop station. So if I have the vocoder activated and I play this, I will not hear it, okay? Because it modulates to an empty signal, right? Because I'm not playing this track. And here I selected track number 1 to be my carrier, okay? Now if I play this, then this signal modulates this signal. I'm just gonna boost the output a bit, that you hear it better, and see it better. Look at that. Because now we can play with our attack, and we will see what happens if we change the attack. So observe what happens. If I put the attack very low, it will fade in quite slowly. Right? Whereas if I put the attack a lot higher, then it attacks more, right? It has like a sharper cut because the input signal modulates the carrier quicker. It attacks more. All right? That's the one thing. And now we only have one last thing to talk about, and that is the modulation sensitivity is what that stands for, I think. Not like I read the manual, I just play around with it until I understand it. Now, what does that mean? Basically, the modulation sensitivity just tells me how much the control signals affect the modulation. So, how quiet can I be with my controls that it affects it in a certain way. So, the lower the sensitivity, the louder I need to be to gain the certain effect, right? So, let's just play it and turn it down. Until at 0, it will not affect the carrier at all anymore, which means we're muting it. Now if we turn it up again, at 100, obviously, we have the most effect. Now, in a way, you kind of could argue that you can control that with the effect level, which is indirectly controlled by the balance. But having a separate setting for it just gives you more control. For instance, if you want to keep the balance at 0-100, so you want just the vocoder, and then you can still change how loud your output effect should be based on a certain input effect signal. You get another chance to better balance the sounds. Yeah, and here we are. That's the vocoder effect explained. Now, of course, sounds quite lame. There are definitely better ways how to use the vocoder with your looper. One very nice thing to do with the vocoder is to set up harmonies such that you can, harmonize with yourself while singing. Let's see if I can make something happen. Just do 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 do. I mean, I made better harmonies than that before. But anyway, this is just to explain, right? This is not to sound good. This is just to explain stuff. Okay, cool. Now, we recorded our carrier on track 3. This is what we want to modulate with. So we set our carrier to track 3. We mute our carrier. And then we might just add an EQ to remove some low frequencies and boost some high frequencies. And another thing we want to do is we want to also hear ourselves sing and additionally our harmonies in the back. So let's see. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Something like that. Or like, I can use the vocoder right. Now I just sing another voice, and my harmonies will be defined by the carrier. So if I have nice harmonies there, then I will always sing the harmonies as well. And that's the cool thing about that. Then it sounds like you are singing that particular line, but also with harmonies in the background. And that's very powerful. Like, we can do a lot of stuff with that. That's very handy to automatically harmonize with yourself. You just need to sing it once there. Obviously, you need to have a constant, like, see, I didn't do. If I would have done that, I mean, you can demonstrate. If I had that as our carrier, then it would sound like I use use the vocoder wrong. I use the vocoder differently. Of course, it's not wrong. If that's the effect that you want to have, then that's cool. If you want this kind of sliced harmonies in there. But just be aware of it. Whatever is there will be used to modulate. And if there's a break there, if there's silence on the track, then you won't have the vocoder effect. Which means if you're working on balance 0-100, then I can sing. Yeah. Of course, there are so many more things that you can do with the vocoder. For instance, you can use the carrier signal as an input as well by just selecting the same track. If we select track 4 in a vocoder, and then we play it as well to get it the input. Now it modulates it with itself. So from the voice input, you get the control signals, what the vocoder thinks is important for the speech. And then you modulate it back on that, giving you this kind of effect. Also very interesting if you do that with like just noise. So yeah, just play around with the vocoder. It's a very powerful tool. It can definitely make your songs sound sweet or robotic. And again, those were just the basics. I could make a 2-hour video about the vocoder, no problem, but not gonna, because I want people to actually watch this. If you want more, let me know in the comments what exactly you want to see, if there was anything unclear, or if you think I said something wrong, which can happen. I also still keep learning about the RC-505. I mean, it still keeps surprising me. I did give a private lesson recently, and I explained something, and then I was like, why is it not working? Because apparently one of the settings behaved differently than I thought it would. So yeah, I just also keep learning. Also, if you want private lessons yourself, let me know. I'm up for that, because if I get paid for it, I do have time. Also, if you want to support me directly, I mean, you know, I'm not getting a lot of money making those videos. I have a PayPal in the description if you want to support me directly. Of course, please only do that if you're financially stable. And if you're struggling with money, please don't. Just keep your money. But if you're well off and you want to support my work, I'd be glad. Anyhow, that's enough of the self-promotion. Hope you liked the video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. I'm gonna do a basics series soon, because I still get a lot of really basic questions. So that's gonna be the next thing probably. So if you're here for that, subscribe, hit the bell. Also, I might start streaming on Twitch soon. We'll see if that happens. Yeah, so interesting stuff coming up. And I guess you go make your backup and use the vocoder. Go make your backup and use the vocoder. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I see you in the next tutorial or at my live shows. Okay, let's make another track by myself. Whatever feels fine is alright. Do a little bit of a high vibration there, but yeah, whatever. Yeah. Now check this out. I sing in vocoder style. I am alright. This gives me a smile. Oh, I have the harmonies backing me up when I do the verse. Yes, please give me more of the tune. Give me more. Soon you will know how to use the vocoder right. And if you don't, well, watch my videos again tonight. Say, just use the vocoder right. Yeah, just use the vocoder right. Just use the vocoder right. You can, of course, also record the thing that you're doing with the vocoder, obviously. Aww. Yeah. And again, this is even more nice if you put more of that shit on top of each other. You can have that here or remove it again or put it back. That's the cool thing, my friend. Just use the vocoder right. Yeah, just use the vocoder right. Just use the vocoder right. I tell you, baby, just use the vocoder right. Just use the vocoder right. And it's also so cool because you can sing anything that you want, and it still has this nice background sound. Isn't that super nice? Yeah, just use the vocoder right, baby. Just use the vocoder right. Yeah, just use the vocoder right. I tell you, baby, just use the vocoder right. Enough, I've been recording for an hour.